We know that just the last 24 hours, the news had been on that great evangelist, televangelist, one of the leading evangelicals in the 20th century, just transitioning to the 21st century, Billy Graham, had passed on at the age of 1999. And Mama Vioso Abuaje is with Reverend James Sarr. We want to have a great conversation just around his legacy, what he brought to bear into the world of Christianity, etc. And Mama Vioso Abuaje is ready with the latest.
We're doing right now, we're in Adenta, the Wonder Cathedral of the Action Chapel International in Adenta. And Bishop James Sarr joins us. He's our guest for the next couple of minutes. We will talk about the Reverend Billy Graham in a bit, and we will also talk about some happenings in our own country. He's chairman of the College of Bishops as well. So good morning to you, sir.
Of Action Chapel.
Of Action Chapel. Thank you for allowing us into your space this morning.
Thank you.
First of all, the Reverend Billy Graham, who died at 99, did you ever get the opportunity to be really close?
No. I would say we live in different dispensations of sort by virtue of my age. I got born again in 1981, by which time I was already riding high. His ministry had gone far ahead. But I worked under Archbishop Idahosa, who would be a generation probably after his ministry, or just about that time. Yes, because he aligned more with Evangelist Dr. T.L. Osborne, and my Archbishop Idahosa used to talk a lot about Dr. T.L. Osborne, who actually ordained me. So through that, I had a lot. I used to read the books of Billy Graham, listen to his messages when I got born again. So that's how close probably I came to the meeting one-on-one, probably apart from television. Yes. Yeah.
A lot of us, I think maybe we are a very young generation, grew up watching his teachings on television as well. But you'd realize that he's an evangelist. That's how he's referred to, a man who held many crusades at stadiums and things like that.
400 crusades.
Yes.
From the report, 400 crusades in 185 cities. On the last count, 400 crusades, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yes, traveled.
Many lives.
Yes, many lives.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what do you think we've lost? He hadn't been active, obviously, because he had grown very, very old. But what do you think we've lost with his passing?
Well, the dimension of the loss will be dictated by how people see him. We look at it from different positions. The state of the church, the nation of America, and the world at large. And if you refer to some statements that have been made by Dr. Jesse Jackson, President Donald Trump, and other key leaders, it gives you a fair idea. And if you also consider the fact that there's a man who is reportedly to have reached over 200 million people, probably no preacher in living memory has touched so many people. That also shows the dimension of the loss and his leadership, that he was able to overcome a lot of the things that afflicted ministers who came into the tele-evangelism generation, because he set in motion certain characteristics and posture of life that helped him to dodge or to overcome these things. And he's left a very strong landmark in our society. Yes.
Let's talk about his work as an evangelist and the fact that, if you bring it to our own Ghanaian context, I know that some churches still do evangelism, even though it's not publicized. So they go to a lot of the rural communities and they carry out their evangelistic works. But have we moved from that realm? You are in the spirits. Have we moved from that realm of evangelism into power and prophetic?
The three have never gone away. It's an issue of emphasis. If you read Ephesians 4:11, all the various ascension gift offices exist and they operate. It's dimensional depending where you are looking at. You should understand that before Dr. Billy Graham came into the fullness of his ministry, before television, radio preceded television, folks were doing one-on-one. But it was television that really empowered and gave him greater coverage in terms of listenership and viewership. But even today in Ghana, I think it's a default for one to think that evangelism, I still see Dr. Lawrence Tete. I'm not an evangelist, I'm a teacher, but I still see Dr. Lawrence Tete. You can still think of Dr. Ampia Kofi. Let's grant it to Bishop Dag. I was in Liberia, I saw Bishop Dag, and he's all over, even outside Ghana. He goes to Rwanda. Next time you see, anytime I talk to his bishops, he's doing a great work, Bishop Ajiansari, all the folks. But the other dimension you should not overlook is that from the book of Acts chapter 2, chapter 4 into chapter 8, it is not only outreach in terms of crusades that lead people to Christ. You can have a prophetic meeting, and if an altar call is made and the word is preached, people should be able to accept Christ. And so this is why, if inferring from that, there's a program, Experience, which is held by Paul, Reverend Paul Adefarasin. It's a worship program, about 24-hour worship program, and people give their lives to Christ. So a prophetic program, all the preacher must do in the presence of Christ is to raise an awareness and lead people to Christ. So it isn't that anything has gone wrong. It's an issue of emphasis, dimensionally where you are positioned and what you are seeing at any given time.
So at a miracle service, you know, at a meeting where people are receiving miracles, you can also say that that's also a way of winning souls for Christ.
Oh, definitely. Because the end product is, who is doing this miracle? In whose name is this being done? People all over the world, people under, when they see a miracle, if a blind man is healed, it's not an issue of being to school or you're an illiterate or you're unschooled. A miracle is a miracle to everybody. But the question is, who is doing this and what is the purpose? And the question is Jesus Christ who died for you? And that is the answer. And that leads people to Christ. So miracles on their own doesn't necessarily lead people to Christ. You must answer the question of why is he doing this? That he's a savior and he's a healer.
What do we need more? Evangelism, prophetic healing?
I think you like the prophetic very much. It isn't really that. I think it's a move. There are seasons in like waves of the sea. It subsides. The prophetic will not be like this forever. There was a time when the healing ministry wasn't at a certain peak. There was a time when the teaching ministry wasn't. Today you could pack, if you see Reverend John Francis, Reverend Joseph Prince, you see Dr. T.D. Jakes, the Archbishop, Dr. Mason Otabil, I mean, very profound teachers, field halls, Institute Anaba, Love Revolution. People that necessarily don't come for miracles. They come to hear the word, and an altar call can be made. So if we go too far off into the area of saying the emphasis is unduly on the prophetic, I think it's not right. All the various gifts are at work. Yes, but just that maybe because of social media, we hear a lot more of others than what others are doing. Yes.
These days we hear a lot more of, I don't know whether to categorize them as young prophets, but people who are, you know.
I hope you are not taking me to uncharted territories. I didn't bargain for this one.
We all didn't bargain for that.
Okay.
But it's a good thing because you're a teacher. Because you're a teacher.
So all my notes are not here.
It's good to bounce that off you. But it's interesting you say that perhaps we're hearing a lot more of the prophecies because of social media. But the point is, why won't traditional pastors, the traditional teachers also make use of social media so that we can hear more of the teachings?
Yesterday, I think Joy FM covered a program we did at the International Press Center, organized by Reverend Ansan. Other great men appeared. Professor Opoku Inyina, Apostle Professor Opoku Inyina was there. Reverend Dr. Samuel Jedu addressed, and a lot of key personalities were there to address this issue. It's not a question of proliferation. In every move, it was in the revival that Ananias and Sapphira died in Acts chapter 5. So revival is not clean. Yeah, what's and all. In the move of God, the fact that there's a counterfeit is an indication there's also the genuine. And so, but the Bible says the wheat and the tar will grow together. So sometimes it's a certain balance. One helps you to determine what the other one is. But just that from the meeting yesterday, what came out is that the leaders are setting up to some of the things, answering the questions, and finding ways of ameliorating some of the challenges that come with the move. But in every profession, you have things like that. I think we shouldn't stretch it. That whatever profession, without naming names, I don't know who is listening, but beyond here, you find every profession once in a while, you find somebody who is a black sheep.
You find
Yes,
doctors,
yes,
lawyers.
yes. So it's just for us to up our game and really show what the truth is in the light of God's word.
But you know that also once in a while, not to veer for the main conversation, you'd find that people do name calling. I mean, if there's a fake lawyer out there, it's published when the person is found out. Why don't we get, our teachers also coming out once in a while to give us a list of people that they don't think are doing the real work of God, so that, I mean, some of us are very vulnerable.
It's a very delicate area. I don't think there's any culture where, or any country that gives a certain approach the way you are depicting it. Well, in a certain balance, we say water will find its own level. If we preach the truth, some things will take care of themselves. But I think from the meeting yesterday, what I found was that if you talk about GPCC, Ghana Pentecostal Council, NAC, National Association of Charismatic Churches, the Bishops' Council, and then other groups, monitoring groups, overseeing groups, peer review groups, will be in place to help deal with this. Because, yes, for most of the young prophets, is the youthful exuberance, lack of training, lack of understanding that come with that. It isn't that some of them are not really called. There may be a few who may not really understand what they are doing. But I think with a little time, with what I saw yesterday, things will be put in place to help manage some of the challenges that have come as a result of the move. The prophetic movement is there. The gift of prophecy exists. It's in the Bible. And it's very helpful to the nation. From what you see in the Bible, it's helpful to the church and society. But I think we have to work out and sort out the difficulties.
Okay. So for the young generation, and going back to evangelism, because that was one of the key things that Billy Graham is noted for. His name is not mentioned without the Evangelist Bits. What can we take as young people? We don't necessarily have to be reverend ministers or pastors, but how can we also evangelize?
I think we should go back to Matthew 28 and Mark 16. I heard a preacher say, the go ye has become the sit ye. The Great Commission has become the Great Omission. You see, the church has become ingrown and inward. But I think we should emphasize the church going now to win the lost more and more. But I think I am not an evangelist. I don't have a big voice. I don't have what it takes. I don't have the drive.
You do have a big voice.
I don't know. It's in the eye of the beholder. I don't know what big voice is. But compared to those who are evangelists, I mean, if I take a crusade 3 days, I will break down. I don't have it. But if I hear folks like the Archbishop, the power to preach, and I hear Bishop Dag, Bishop Jansari, and folks like that who are classical evangelists on the field out there, and Dr. Ampia Kofi, I think they are driving the work. Maybe we need a lot more evangelists taking the church into the marketplace. I think that's what it is. I totally agree with you that evangelism has subsided and the church has become comfortable. Success with its implications. But I think we've got to go out a lot more because too many people are still not going to church. Marginally, those who go to church is just a small number. Yeah.
Is it going to church that...
getting you out of your house to church is part of the process. But there are people today who say, we are home watching TV. But that breaks the word of God also in Hebrews. Yeah, that forsake not the assembling of yourselves. Go to church. The church is a spiritual training school. You should have an oversight. You should have a local pastor over you. Hebrews 13:7, who will watch over your soul. Right. So this man has left us a legacy.
Just the last thing, because of what you said.
Yes.
Let the pastor be an oversight.
Yes,
But sometimes our local churches are so big, sometimes you get lost in it as a church member. And you wonder, does the pastor see me?
I guess it's the small church that becomes the big church, isn't it? And the big businesswoman wants her business to become big, isn't it? Or he wants a lot of diminishing returns. He wants his business to go backward.
How do you still keep your eye on your members who suddenly feel that the church has become very big?
Church. Yes. Even for our church here, Wanda Cathedral, we're almost 1,000 now. Sprinters is far bigger. I know big churches in the system all over the place in Accra. There are mechanisms. We have house churches, we have cell groups that manage the churches. So everybody belongs. In our church, you have what you call tribes, the 12 tribes. So everybody belongs to a tribe, and you have a tribe leader. So if anything happens to you, your first port of call, first line of defense, if your cell is your tribe leader who reports to the pastor. So it may not be as you think.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for allowing us to have a conversation with you. And
Can I give you this statement by Dr. Billy Graham?
Yeah, sure.
I wrote, he said, someday you will hear or read that Billy Graham is dead. Don't you believe a word of it? I shall be more alive than I am now. I would just have changed my address. I would have gone into the presence of God.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes. God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you so much. Stay with us. You're still watching the AM show. Becky is on standby with some entertainment before we wrap up the show.